It was a warm summer evening when I found myself at my aunt and uncle's house for a family gathering. The air was filled with laughter and the smell of grilled food, and I was excited to catch up with my relatives. My uncle David was always the life of the party, charming everyone with his stories and charisma. He was in his early 40s, fit, and had a magnetic presence that drew people in. As the night wore on, the gathering began to dwindle. People started to leave, and soon it was just the two of us, Uncle David and me. We sat on the patio, sipping drinks and reminiscing about old times. The conversation flowed easily, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting between us. At one point, I excused myself to grab another drink, leaving David alone for a moment. When I returned, he was leaning back in his chair, a playful smile on his face. "You've grown up so much," he said, his gaze lingering on me. "I can hardly believe how beautiful you've become." I felt a blush creep up my cheeks. "Thanks, Uncle David. That means a lot coming from you." I had always admired him, but there was something about his tone that made my heart race. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere became charged. The playful banter turned into something more intense, and I could feel the chemistry building between us. I found myself leaning closer to him, drawn in by an invisible force. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned in as well, our shoulders touching. When the gathering finally came to an end, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. David suggested we move inside to watch a movie, and I agreed, eager to spend more time with him. We settled onto the couch, and as the film played, I found myself stealing glances at him. He was handsome, with a rugged charm that was hard to ignore. Halfway through the movie, I felt his hand brush against mine, and I felt a jolt of electricity. I looked at him, and our eyes locked for a brief moment. There was an intensity there that made my heart race. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and slightly breathless. "I'm fine," I replied, but inside I was a whirlwind of confusion and desire. This was my uncle, my aunt's husband. I shouldn't be feeling this way. As the movie continued, I felt the tension building. I leaned in closer, and before I knew it, our lips met in a soft, tentative kiss. It was electric, igniting a fire within me that I hadn't felt in years. I pulled back, my heart racing. "We shouldn't be doing this," I said, my voice trembling. "I know," he replied, his eyes dark with desire. "But I can't help it." Just then, I realized the gravity of what we were doing. This was my aunt's husband, and we were crossing a line that could shatter our family. But the attraction was undeniable, and I found myself wanting more. "Maybe we should just forget this happened," I suggested, my voice shaky. David shook his head, stepping closer. "I can't forget it. There's something between us that I can't ignore." The weight of his words hung in the air, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. The thrill of the forbidden was calling to me, and I found myself leaning closer to him, again. "What if we just see where this goes?" I suggested, my heart racing. David's expression softened, and he reached out to cup my face in his hand. "Are you sure? Once we cross this line, there's no going back." I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. "I'm sure." In that moment, he leaned in, capturing my lips with his in a passionate kiss. It was everything I had imagined and more. Intense, electric, and filled with longing. I melted into him, forgetting the world around us as we lost ourselves in each other. As we pulled away, breathless and exhilarated, I knew we had crossed a line that would change everything. The thrill of our secret connection was intoxicating, but I also felt a pang of guilt. We were playing with fire, and I knew the consequences could be devastating. Over the next few weeks, we met in secret, stealing moments together whenever we could. Each encounter was filled with passion and excitement, but the weight of our actions loomed over us. I found myself torn between the thrill of our relationship and the guilt of betraying my family. One evening, after a particularly passionate rendezvous, we found ourselves in David's bedroom, the air thick with desire. The room was dimly lit, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. I could feel my heart racing as he pulled me closer, his hands exploring my body with a mix of urgency and tenderness. I melted into his touch, feeling the heat between us intensify. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice low and filled with concern. "I've never been more sure," I replied, my breath hitching as he leaned in to kiss me again. In that moment, all my doubts faded away. We surrendered to the passion that had been building between us, losing ourselves in each other completely. The world outside ceased to exist as we explored the depths of our desire, crossing every boundary we had once set. As dawn broke, reality began to creep back in. I lay beside David, my heart racing as I realized the gravity of what we had done. We had crossed a line that could shatter our family, and the thrill of our connection was now intertwined with guilt. "I don't know how we can go back," I whispered, my voice trembling. David sighed, pulling me closer. "We'll figure it out. But for now, let's just enjoy this moment." As I lay there, I knew that our lives would never be the same. The thrill of the forbidden had consumed us, and while I felt exhilarated, I also understood the weight of our choices. Whatever happened next, I knew we had crossed a threshold that would change everything. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means everything to me and helps us create a space where we can share, reflect, and grow together.